Hello and welcome. This is Japan, and we're going to go over the PWI list of the top 500 men. Not going to go for the entire list, but I wanted to look at mainly the top 10, who they had as the top 10, and who I personally thought was in the top 10. I did the same thing with the women. The list hasn't came out yet. I try to predict their list, and I also picked my list. So if you want to check out those ones, they're also on this channel. But I figured let's jump into theirs. Now, they go over a lot of different stuff. Basically, the PWI say they go after win-loss record, championships won, quality of competition, major feuds, the prominence within a wrestler's promotion, and then overall wrestling ability. Now, honestly, my kind of feeling about it is technically for me, I feel like I try to go over wrestling the most. That's like the number one thing I look at, and then I just kind of go based off of their gimmick and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like I kind of that's what I focus in on. And there might be other people that I've missed. I'll be completely honest. I watch a lot of WWE and I watch other matches here and there from other promotions. Mainly AEW would be the second biggest amount of matches that I watch, and then ROH, it seems to be the thing that I've gravitated most to because I like a lot of the men on that roster. I like a lot of the women, so I'd watch that too. So there might be some missing gaps here. So not saying my list is perfect. I do feel like my list is better than the PWI, but that's just saying that. So let's start at number 10. Number 10, they have Will Ospreay. Now, Will Ospreay has had a phenomenal year. I think injuries hampered him, and I think AEW's booking has kind of hampered him. I personally wouldn't have him in the top 10 just because of that. And if you go by like where their rating system is, like it's between like August and July of like last year going into this year. If that's what the case, I really don't think he fits that because he's not had any of those qualities other than the wrestling ability. So I personally don't have Will Ospreay in my top 10 this year. I feel like there could have been other stuff. I mean, I feel like he was in some major feuds, but I felt like a lot of the times he just wasn't there. I would definitely still have him in the top 15, but top 10, probably not. I mean, I honestly, personally, they had a caught at 11. I would have swapped them at least with that if they were going to do that. And I'll tell you where the positioning of the people that I picked, just in case they're not in the top 10 here. So, my number 10, I honestly feel like this wrestler doesn't have necessarily the wrestling ability to be in the top 10, but between promos, between feuds, between everything else that they said that this should have been a higher wrestler. This was 15 on their list and 10 on mine would be CM Punk. I feel like he's just had a phenomenal year. He's had major feuds. He's been just killing it since he's been back to the WWE. He is surprisingly not the only WWE person I have on my list, but the only main roster person. A little bit of spoiler ahead of away, but I feel like you could have possibly put in this 10 spot Seth Rollins or Cody Rhodes. Again, those are great wrestlers in their own right, but with everything else that's happened this year, it just didn't feel right. I also could have thought, at least on my list, Hangman Adam Page could have been up there. I feel like he had a lot of growth as a character, and I kind of really liked his growth. I just feel like there was other stuff that I gravitated a little bit more on this list, but I definitely would have had Hangman around this. That would have been roughly my soft 15 would have had those names that I just said, but yeah, so I have CM Punk at 10. Next up, I have Mike Bailey, Speedball Mike Bailey. They are just a phenomenal wrestler. They just do crazy stuff out there, and they just have that look. They just go out there and do their thing, and I don't know what else to say. Like they're in the tag team Jet Speed right now with Kevin Knight on AEW, but there are a lot of their independent stuff that's been great. The stuff they've done at the what is it? The Canadian Pro one that I watch, Maple Leaf Pro. I think they've had some phenomenal matches there. They have Mike Bailey all the way down at I just saw it and I wrote it down 76, which is kind of crazy that I have him at 9, I guess, but I honestly feel like he should be way higher. 76 is insane. There's way better people. I mean, way less. There's he's better than a lot of the people ahead of him. Is what I was trying to say. Even just on a personal wrestling standpoint, and even for the year, there's people that I think he's higher up than that are in here. So I definitely think Mike Bailey is in the top 10. Then probably just a little bit of disappointing with injuries and just poor booking. I have Swerve Strickland at 8. I like Swerve Strickland a lot. He's one of my favorite wrestlers, but I feel like this year has just not been his. It's the same thing with Will Ospreay. The injuries and kind of booking that they've had has just kind of made it a lackluster year. They had matches that didn't really quite fit them, feuds that sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. So I still have him a little bit higher because I still feel like this quality of wrestling has been the same. I don't feel like any of that dropped off. So I think I have him. I mean, I know I have him at 8. The PWI list has him at 7, so that actually is pretty close. So I don't think that's too bad. But I think 8 is a pretty solid position to put him in. Next up, I have Obafemi. He has been a killer on NXT. Now, this is kind of one of those things where people may or may not disagree or agree because it is an NXT guy. So some people think that maybe it's a little easier down there to have matches and stuff. But I also almost say it's the opposite because you have to stand out there even more with people that may not be at the quality of a main roster person. And obviously, he could go up there and flop, and we'll never know. You know, like, I mean, of course, we'll know in the future, but like, we don't know now putting this on this list. And I feel like even the PWI understood that. He was 14th on this list. I mean, he was the highest NXT star, if you don't count Joe Hendry. Um, I just have him way higher because I've liked everything he's done. He's done great character work. He's done great matches. Some of his best matches have been this year, and even last year he had phenomenal stuff. So I think this spot is very fitting for him, and I really personally don't have a problem with him at 7. And yeah, I can defend that. Then at 6 is kind of a new wrestler for me. I have only seen him this year. I haven't seen a great portion of his matches, so maybe it's just blind. Maybe there's a lot of other holes in his game, and I've missed those matches. But the matches I've seen have been really good quality and really good work, and I've liked all of it. He's not even built like what you would feel as a traditional wrestler, but at number 6, I have Hechizero. I feel like he's had some of the greatest matches with Bandito this year, and all these other stuff that he's in, and a lot of the tag matches. He has good highlighted moments where, like, you go into a big tag match and you remember what he did compared to other people. And I think that's a good sign of a good wrestler. PWI has him at 71, but I have him at 6. I feel like he's just a perfect person for that. I feel like he's had so many banger matches, and maybe, like I said, out of all the people on this list, he's probably the one I've seen the least amount of matches for. But I feel like it's still, you know, I feel like I can still feel like he's going to be 6, and I really have. I'm glad that I kind of not discovered him or just like seen more of his matches than I would have maybe on a typical year. Then we have at number 5, kind of a surprising wrestler. I feel like this one's kind of a 50-50 thing. I think his wrestling ability is pretty strong, very competent in the ring. Would I say he's the best wrestler in the world? No. Would I say he's a top 5 just pure wrestler? No, but if you put his character and everything that he's done this year, I think he's easily a top 5. Even a top 5, like at 5, it's a very hard position to hold, but I think Ozawa and Pro Noah has been phenomenal. Like, he came out of nowhere, really, and to take their belt off of one of the biggest stars in Keto is kind of insane. I'm not even like that big into Noah. I've watched quite a few of their programming when I can. Obviously, Japanese stuff comes out at a different time, and they don't really have a streaming service that's affordable. I mean, they have Wrestle Universe, but I'm not really into paying that much money for stuff that takes forever to come up from the live events. You know, if everything came up right away or it was streamed on there at a, I would be fine with it. But like, it comes on live and then doesn't go to a VOD until like 2 weeks later, but that's a whole different side thing. But him winning that title and what he did afterwards, I thought was really good. I really feel like they should have held on to him longer and allowed him to do more stuff. I kind of feel like, in a way, they kind of spin their wheels. Again, I'm not like completely onto a week to week, show to show thing, but I did like the run that he had, and I feel like out of a lot of people here, he might be one of those people that might get he might either skyrocket or he might fall all the way down. The PWI had him at 26. I think they agreed that he did still have a solid year, but I have him in my top 5. Next up is just one of those wrestlers that kind of has it all. Phenomenal wrestling, just is a guy that you root for, guy you like to see in it, and just lost the big championship to Takeshita very recently at the at God, I forgot what the event was, but it is Zack Saber Jr. Why did I say Jack? I have it written down and everything just in case. But Zack Saber Jr. is just one of those guys. If you want to show somebody, Japanese wrestling, if you have Zack Saber Jr. blank whatever Japanese wrestler, it's going to help bridge that gap. It's somebody that can digest it if you're an AEW fan. I feel like if you're a WWE fan, it's just another type of thing where it's like he has that feel, look, and everything about him that like makes you feel like, oh, you know this type of wrestler, but then you see him and what he does out there, and you're like, that's a really phenomenal character, like worker in that ring. Because some people can't, like I don't know his promo skills. I don't think I've seen him ever really cut a promo, but I can see what he tells you in the ring and whatever story. Even if I've seen a 2 second snippet of something and then get to the match, I feel like there's a story going along and whatever. Even if it's just that first two time, like that time both of them are meeting in there, he tells you like just paints that masterpiece in that ring and obviously is definitely into that. Also, I wanted to say on the Ozawa thing, having him at 6. I messed up. I had him at 5. No, I did have him at 5. Okay, I did say that. 6 was Hechizero. That was against Jey Uso. And then number 5 was against Goto. I haven't really ever seen Goto wrestle. I'm going to be honest. A lot of the New Japan Pro Wrestling, some of the older guys, I'm not really aware of. So I'm going to be honest. So I just want to cut that back. And then now that we're at 4 with Zack Sabre Jr., he's up against Hangman Adam Page on the actual list. I don't necessarily feel bad for Hangman Adam Page being on 4. If people have him on that vein, I think he's had a solid year to believe to be up there. But I still think Zack Sabre Jr. is higher. And Zack Sabre Jr. only got 13 on the original list. So I forgot to say that on the last part. Next up on number 3 is just another one of those workers that go out there and don't really have bad matches, at least everything that I've seen, and that's Mascara Dorado. I don't feel like he's necessarily got that super huge push. He had that match against Okada, the triple threat that was really good, and I feel like he's had other stuff where people have seen him in the mainstream, but I think I've seen other matches and other stuff from him that I've really enjoyed. I definitely think he's a top 3 wrestler in just pure wrestling ability, and it was insane to see the positioning that they had him. I know they the I PWI had him at 23, but not to have him in the top 20 was kind of insane to me just because of like, I feel like he's pretty well known to be a top 20 wrestler at least, but I have him at 3. I feel like it's a no-brainer for me and definitely better than their list of Gunther at 3. Nothing but respect for Gunther and his ability to always be champion, but I don't think his character work and his in-ring work believes to be a 3 on the entire thing, especially because he's at 3 and the other 2 people in front of him, are around the same level of like wrestling skill, but nowhere near this. Like the character work on the other 2 are way better. So yeah, we'll get to my number 2. This was a very easy 1 and 2. These have been my top 2 wrestlers all year, and it's really been clean cut. I've always had this man at 2, and I just kind of hope that he would eventually get to that 1. And there is a little bit of time left in the year, so you never know, but I think it's going to be hard. But I have Bandito at 2nd. He's had just such an amazing year. It's crazy that they use him on ROH, but I got no problem with it because I can find ROH VODs way easier than I can find AEW stuff after the fact. So I'm perfectly fine with that. So I can just go see most of the matches. Plus they upload a bunch of them on their YouTube. So all of that just adds chef's kiss. It's been phenomenal what he's done this year. He's easily probably had at least 2 of the top 5 matches of the year, maybe even 3. I would have to really write down the list and find out, but I really do think 3 of them's up there, and that's just an easy, not just off the top of my head, I can say that. Definitely beats out their number 2, which was John Moxley. Makes sense. Moxley was champion throughout the year. Nothing against him, but I don't really view him as a top 10 wrestler. As a character worker, I think he's really good, but I didn't like anything that they did with AEW this year, so obviously a little bit biased there. So we'll get to number 1. Number 1 on the PWI list was Cody Rhodes, of course. Had a pretty okay year. Honestly, I think Cody Rhodes' year was not that great. I mean, he went into WrestleMania, had an absolute stinker, lost that to John Cena, and then went into just kind of nothing and then got the title back. Now I know they set this up was from August of 2024 to July 2025. So I guess maybe it was a little bit better because it had a lot of the other stuff towards the end of his run. But again, I feel like that title run just wasn't the best title run in the world. So putting him at one, I think is a little crazy. But yeah, I think my number one, it's a lot better. I had Takeshita. Takeshita was 17 on their list, but I definitely think he's one. Just the best wrestler right now, hands down. There's nobody that's near him. Even Bandito, and even the matches that they had. Obviously, they both did a great in it, but I still think Takeshita always looked the best out there. Bandito also had number 16 on their list, so it's crazy that my top two is one and two is 16 and 17 for them. Just that's just no way. Just because of the titles and stuff. And Takeshita did cap off the year as New Japan Pro Wrestling's top champion. Obviously, it doesn't fit in this category, but or like in this time frame. But at least I can say that. But even if he didn't have that title, he's still done some amazing things. But yeah, that's been my list. Tell me what you guys agree. Tell me who you would have on your top list and all that type of stuff. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.